Hey, welcome to the Real Estate Template. We are here today with Bo and Angelique, or Angelique and Bo for those that want the woman introduced first. They're in from Florida. We're going to do some property tours today, looking at different properties that we own and what we do. We're going to talk about land development deals. We're going to talk about building. We're going to talk about, y'all do more with the Airbnbs right now than anything else, and want to maybe break into some more longer term goals. You're retired basically from the Sheriff's Department. I come from the Sheriff's Department. Bo works for the Sheriff's Department down in Florida right now, and you got how long before you retire?
Just under 4 months.
You don't have the exact date? The exact amount of days?
Not the exact number of days, but
come on.
June
So he's not as excited about retiring. He can't be that excited if he don't know the exact numbers of days.
To be fair, he has the countdown on his phone, but it just shows number of days, not working days.
Okay.
So he knows.
My cousin retired from Homeland Security, and he could tell you 600 days out exactly every single day how many days he had left before he was done. That tells you are really done with the job. But anyway, so we met through the collective, through George Gammon's events first is where we met. And have just built a relationship over the years, and they came into town for a short-term rental conference, and we've just been able to spend some time together. So give everybody one thing that y'all got from the short-term rental conference that they can take and it'll help somebody.
Apparently social media is huge, and not just Instagram, but TikTok, LinkedIn. I would have never thought LinkedIn for.
I don't do anything on. I got an account, but I don't do anything on.
No, LinkedIn. Social media apparently is like the latest thing, and direct booking websites. So that's definitely what I'm going to be focusing on is advertising, and marketing for my Pinterest. Yeah, they said Pinterest would be good for short-term rentals too. So yeah, that's definitely one of the big takeaways that I have.
So what are you using now for your short-term rentals?
So I have an Instagram account, and I just started it, so I'm working on it organically. But apparently I have to work on my hashtags and work on my posting a little bit better to gain more traffic to my site.
And y'all doing it through VRBO or Airbnb or both? Or?
So we have Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, and Furnished Finder. I'm probably going to expand my platforms to also a direct booking website or military site that hosts midterm rentals as well.
Who does what on the short-term rentals? Who manages what? Who takes care of the property? Who does? So y'all completely together or?
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, he does all the handyman work and the manual labor, and but he also
manual
labor.
I like that.
Yes. But he also does the tech side too. So he sets all my passwords for my door locks. He does all the Wi-Fi passwords. And he also has the thermostat monitoring on his phone. He also monitors like the Ring doorbell, make sure that the guests get in okay, make sure that there's nothing going on outside. I do all the coordinating of the cleaning, the decor, the finer details like the snacks and the water, and make sure everything looks like top notch even after the cleaners leave. And then of course I'm doing all the push with the marketing and the adjusting of the pricing and making sure the pricing goes with the algorithm, and just making sure everything's nice and tidy on the customer service side, making sure I'm emailing the guests, making sure they're okay, checking in with them, and if they have any questions. Like I had this morning, I had an incident where the guy from VRBO wasn't getting his emails from VRBO of when to pay, so VRBO was actually going to cancel his reservation on my part because they hadn't paid.
Christina had something like that happen where they canceled the reservation and then somebody else came right in and booked it.
Yeah.
And it was a real crap show for a little while, and I forget now how she had to handle it. I think what she wound up doing was, we got another friend here that does Airbnb and VRBO, and I think what she did was he had a vacancy and she swapped the bookings and got one of the bookings in his place, and they were okay with that. But you know, that has happened to us also.
Yeah. So
how do you realize and stop that from happening, and it slipped through the cracks on you where you lost a booking and you don't even realize that you lost it, but it was done because something that really happened on VRBO's side, not on your side?
So actually the client through VRBO, he contacted me and said, hey, I didn't get anything from VRBO about my payment. Can you tell me what you see on your side? I don't know what's going on, and I don't want my reservation to be canceled. So I logged in from my side and saw that it was correct that he had not paid. And I said, okay, well, everything looks okay from my side. I'm still holding your place because VRBO hadn't canceled it yet, but they were warning him that they were going to cancel it if he didn't pay. So he called VRBO directly and found out there was an email mistake, that he accidentally typed in the wrong email. So he wasn't getting the payment reminders to pay. So I ended up forwarding him the email directly this morning because he still, even though he called VRBO and tried to correct the misspelling on his email, they still didn't fix it. So they were threatening still to cancel his reservation, but he wasn't getting the emails because they got the email still wrong. So, you know, if I had multiple Airbnbs, that might have fallen through.
So can you, and this is just a question, let's say he's having all that problem, they cancel his reservation, you could just direct book with him, right, or no?
Not well. I would have found a way. I mean, I don't have a direct booking site, but I probably would have taken the rest of his payment via like Stripe or PayPal or something. But I don't know what kind of fees that he would have received from VRBO. But as long as I don't cancel from my side, I don't get the strike.
But there's a huge problem with booking outside of VRBO, outside of Airbnb. And correct me if I'm wrong, I am not the guy in my relationship that does that garbage at all. My wife does everything with it. I don't even want to drive by the properties hardly. I just want to stay away from it. I like long-term rentals. That's my forte. But from what I understand, when they book with Airbnb, you get a warranty or you get insurance that protects your property through Airbnb. But if you book through yourself, you lose that. You don't have that ability to go after the people like Airbnb or VRBO, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So it would probably be on either my property insurance or me just having to eat it, basically, or trying to get it a peaceful resolution through the actual party directly. But yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, that's and for me that would be a big deal on some of the stuff. I mean, you get the wrong people in there. We've had people come in and do as much as $40,000 worth of damage to our house in a 2-day weekend.
Wow.
In a 2-day weekend. And, you know, my wife's kind of a go-getter, so she got the money back immediately. But, you know, it was a big deal.
So do you guys have insurance for that? How do you do that?
No, she actually, it happened, the gentleman who, his son actually did it on his account, booked it. He wasn't old enough to do it, and we didn't know, you know, he used his dad's information to book everything, and then they had a big party and just trashed the house. And so when she contacted the parents, she said, y'all got to the end of the day to pay this, and that's it. Then I'm taking legal action. And they paid every bit of it immediately. We had contractors in there within hours. Her and I were actually out of town when this happened. And we were probably at a Rebel Capless or collective event, one of the two probably. And when it happened and when we found out about it, we had contractors looking at it immediately. And I mean, before we flew home, she had already been paid for it. And we've only had 2 instances like that we had bad scenarios. We were out of town both instances. And both times she got the money in hours from the people. And, you know, so we've been very fortunate. I don't know if we've ever had anything that we actually went directly to Airbnb or VRBO and had them take care of it for us. You know, I think we just addressed it. And that's on that big house that we got over there that we had both of those instances on. And you get a house where 30 people, 50 people, I mean, we've had as much as 200 people show up at that house at a party.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. And, you know, so that's probably why I don't really like that stuff that much.
Yeah, I mean, right now, well, the good thing is I have in my listing, and I don't mean it, it's like a subtle warning that I'm a retired deputy sheriff. So it's like a subtle warning that when they book my place, hey, you know, the owner is retired deputy sheriff, and since we do, I don't have instant book on for VRBO or Booking.com. I have only the instant book on for Airbnb of if they have a history with Airbnb and they have good ratings. If they don't have good ratings, if they've never rented before, they have to pre-screen through me. And in my policies, that, which Christina helped me out with a lot on that, writing in your house rules that any additional guest over a certain amount will be charged a fee. And so through the Ring doorbell, we could see how many people come in and go out and come in and go out. So that kind of, I could send him over there, say, hey, you know, you have too many people here or whatever. And we could tell if there's a party going on.
Do y'all use any type of cameras besides your Ring camera?
I'm going to add more cameras to the property, but right now it's just the Ring.
So we had over there, we had cameras in the garage. We had a camera in the common area of the house upstairs, which is legal. And I think there was like 4 total cameras in the house, but there was cameras everywhere outside the house. And we had a few people that would complain about the cameras in the common area. And our comment was, we would send them an email and say, hey, you sign off responsibility. You see no issues with that house right now, and we will let you shut them cameras down. You can unplug them where they are, but you're saying if I go back and there's problems there, they wasn't there before you got there, and that's really all we're trying to do. We're just trying to protect the property, but you know, it's just a lot of hassle.
Oh yeah.
So go ahead, sorry.
We have plans for the exterior for the cameras, including a Wi-Fi monitoring cabinet in the garage, lock cabinet where everything can be secured. So, you know, minus the actual cameras inside, I'm trying to avoid that. But full perimeter cameras in addition to the doorbell, but not anything that they could disconnect. You know, that way we have that peace of mind. We can still monitor without invading their privacy.
I got you. You still got to protect that. That's a dangerous place to be for invasion of privacy, especially putting it in a common area and somebody walks through the house naked.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and you know, you put a privacy counter thing in my house in the common area, you're gonna see butts all day long because we're always naked.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
no, I know that there's like options that you could put security on, like as an amenity on there, and I think as long as you disclose the cameras.
Yeah, full disclosure where they are and everything else. A hidden camera will get you sued quick.
Oh no, there's no way. Yeah.
Period. I mean, just nothing done in the dark for sure if you're doing that.
Well, I always look at it from the perspective of I'm the renter. What would I want?
Yeah.
You know, that's fine. The Ring doorbell, you want to know when I'm coming and going, that's totally fine with me. I mean, I think that's also for safety.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody tries to follow a woman, you know, into the Airbnb or behind her or whatever, that's important security feature.
Yeah.
But anything inside, I'm a little leery of.
Yeah, I agree. So let's just do a quick testimonial with you. You can block this out and put it on a different video. So Angelique, you came to the last event that we did here with the real estate template at the office, where we talked about running numbers, we talked about real estate, we talked about different things. Can you maybe just tell people whether it was worth the money, not worth the money, whether you would recommend it, not recommend it, or what's your opinion about it for people that maybe wanting to sign up for the one in March?
I will say that I've been to...
Not putting you on the spot.
No, yeah. I've been to numerous real estate-based events over the past 3 years because I've been hanging out with a lot of people.
I mean, technically, we are friends with Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, oh,
We're
for
friends
sure.
with Ken McElroy. We're friends with a lot of heavy hitter real estate people.
Yes,
And I go to the same seminars you go to.
that's right.
And most of the time, the value that we're looking for newbies getting into the business is not there.
No, but not just that, but like I feel like when I go to other seminars, I get a general overview. Like, this is where we're going, this is what we're thinking, these are the type of returns we're looking for, but they don't go into the weeds. Like, I need to know kind of like what's on your board there. I need to know, what does cash on cash return mean? What does the ROI mean? What does it mean? What is like a 30% LTV? What does a 70% LTV mean? Like, they don't go line by line by line. And honestly, by going to your seminar, first of all, it was way more valuable than any other real estate seminar I've ever been to, just because I've learned the most. I've taken away the most that I cannot find online. So like, I've even paid for Grant Cardone's real estate course and his numbers. And he does go into the numbers a little bit, but it takes you like 10 lessons just to get into the numbers. And I feel like there's so much fluff in there. You really were like, okay, this is how we do it. This is the sheet. This is line by line. You went over each item. And if anybody had any questions, even if you feel dumb, you're like, hey, I don't get it. Can you show that to me again?
And that's the problem in a lot of places. People don't, I got a question, I think it's a dumb question. Problem is there's a half a dozen people in that room got the same exact question that nobody wants to ask because they're just afraid that it's going to make them look stupid. And it's got nothing to do with looking stupid. It's got to do with understanding what you're going to do, because if you don't 100% understand it, you'll not be doing it.
Yeah.
So you and I sat down in Tony Lopes in a hallway talking at one of Jason Hartman's events. Where was that at? You was there too, right, Bo?
Yeah.
So Bo was there too.
Yep.
And that was before you bought your first rental, right?
Yeah.
So we sat and hashed out some numbers and hashed out different ways of looking at her buying a rental at somebody else's conference. And shortly after that, you had purchased your first one. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's just cool. It's cool how it all works. It's cool building those relationships and really out there helping people do better. And you do that through your Substack. You do that through everything else that you do. You got that quote unquote servant's heart, always trying to help other people be more successful in whatever they're doing. Whether Angelique owns her own, she's a personal trainer, and tell the people where they can find you to look at your videos, weightlifting and stuff.
Well, I'm Warrior Angel 21, Warrior Angel 21 on Instagram. And I just started Warrior Athletica on TikTok. So I'm branching out there. So that's where I do that's my logo. But I mean, just going back to the personal aspect of things, I'm a master personal trainer. I've been personal training for over 20 years. And there's something to be said for one-on-one training and or intimate training rather, because the seminar I just went to had over 2,500 attendees. And if I had a question, do you think they're going to find me in a sea of 2,500 attendees? And do you think they're going to want to answer my question in detail? Not really. And then how many people are embarrassed to answer or to ask a question in front of 2,500 people? Because then you got to run the mic over, and then let's just say you don't get the answer, or you're not clear on the answer. You can't do a follow-up because they're already moving on to the next person. Yeah. Attending your seminar in an intimate room with, let's say, 100, 200 people, I had my questions answered, and then I felt like if I had a follow-up question, there was still time for me to ask that question because people weren't annoyed that I was taking up too much time.
Well, we're going to spend 3 days, and I mean, you and I, my wife and everybody else left. You were still here. We still had about 9 people here because we took one night and we played cash flow one night, and had fun. We had a couple different tables with cash flow game going, but we don't care. I mean, we'll stay as late as we need to stay. If we need to stay till 10 o'clock at night so somebody understands what we're talking about, we're going to give people whatever time we got to give people, because the whole purpose of that is to make people successful, to bring them in and make sure that they can leave here and they know the aspects of how to put the deal together. It may not be perfect, but we can still talk about that too. If it ain't perfect, give me a phone call and we'll work the numbers. We'll roll and figure out, different questions on the house. And we've had, lots of calls from different people that attended that seminar, and, they had follow-up questions, and, just give them what you got, 100%. So today, we're going to start talking about these numbers that's on our board. And this is a deal that me and Christina was running with Beth. Beth is wife number 2 for me. Christina is wife number 3. So we haven't done anything with wife number 1. Maybe she'll call me one day. I need something else.
Probably.
But anyway, so we are looking to partner with Beth on a deal to help her secure passive income. So what we're doing is we have found a lot. We got a contract on this lot for $30,000. I'm going to be able to put a duplex on the lot. It's going to be a tight lot to put a duplex on because it's only 1/3 of an acre. But I usually build all my stuff ground level. If I got to go higher with it and build a 2-story to get a duplex on it, we'll still do that. But we're going to put a duplex on that. So we were just running the numbers because she didn't understand how the numbers worked and, you know, how does it work? She's got enough cash to pay for half of the house. And then she said, well, I'm going to be without my cash. I'm not going to have any money. So then I'm going to be struggling because I got no reserves anymore, and trying to explain to her our thing on the board right there, 0% investment or 0 investment, infinite return. That's the goal. So we'll explain that in this video, and you know, we've done this video one time on these numbers already, but not on YouTube. So this will be on YouTube. So Bo, we talking about y'all. You know, you're gonna retire and you got some money that you want to put into doing something, and whether you're going to do a fix and flip and bring money in or not bring money in, you know. So what I would like to do is I'd like to walk through this deal with you, and then you ask the questions that you got, you know, well, but would I be better off if I just sold the house? And then maybe we break it down on why you are better off selling the house and why you're not better off selling the house. What is the difference in there that we can do? Okay. And everything we're talking about changes as interest rate changes. So when interest rates are 3%, your moves are different because you can easily pull almost 100% out of you, or you can pull more than 100% out and still make good cash flow. Right now, to pull 100% out and make good cash flow, it's hard. It's not easy. I mean, we can do it if we build, but I can't do it if I buy. Yeah. So then you say, well, am I better off to sell it, pay the taxes on my profits, and go do that again, or am I better off to hold? Mm-hmm. So with that being in the back of your mind, let's ask me any of them questions. It's very much like your seminar comment. People don't want to ask a stupid question, but you know, the people that watch these videos are asking the same questions too, because we're dealing with people. I mean, y'all own rentals now. Other people don't own any. They still just trying to get through that first hurdle of buying. And when we were part of Rich Dad organization, Rich Dad Education, we would have people ask us, or that for 5 years attended seminars on a monthly basis. And we would fly all over the country every single month and attend a symposium. And it would be the same people year after year after year, but they have never bought a piece of property. And it was amazing how many people would say, I just don't quite know enough yet. They think that they have to know everything in order to do anything. And
I don't think you're ever going to know.
No, you're never going to know everything. But, you know, my thought is always, if we can make those numbers work, that's all I care about. Yeah. The rest of it doesn't matter, you know.
Even interest rates, although they matter on the numbers, if you still get it to cash flow, the interest rate could be, you know, whatever within a range. So that, let's say the Fed in 2024 is projected to cut the interest rates by, let's say, a full 100 basis points, right?
1%.
1%.
That ain't gonna make anybody's difference in the world, right? That ain't gonna change my world at all.
But if you do the numbers and you find out, well, the interest rates could go up to 12% and I'm still cash flowing on the deal, well then great. You're still going to cash flow.
If you cash flow at 8% and you're locked in on your rate, you know, interest rates can do what they want to do.
That's right.
And then eventually, whenever they drop back down, and I don't know if we're ever going to see 4% again. We may only drop to 5%. I think they realize that 3% interest rates really cause higher inflation because people are getting more money for it. That's just part of it. But are they going to let that happen again? Are they going to control and say, look, we need them to stay 5%, not lower than 5%?
Well, people probably would have been scared. The type of loan that I got is for investors. It's a DSCR loan, and it's a 8% interest rate. Well, what happened over the past, 8 months was that the normal interest rate for Fannie and Freddie got to 7.75 and even close
It's
to
not
8.
that far off.
No. So like, do I feel bad? No, because I have a piece of property that's cash flowing.
So that neighborhood, we bought a neighborhood in Smithville. And when we bought that neighborhood, interest rates were 6%. But my bank would not lock it in. They wouldn't lock it in until we were getting closer to doing it. So by the time we got appraisals and everything else done, they had went up to 8%. Then 2 weeks before we were ready to close on the loan at 8%, the bank came back and they changed their procedure where they were making everybody put 40% down on stuff like that. So we were coming in expecting to put 20% down, and then they come out and I got to put an additional $1 million plus down just to close the deal. And, you know, that's one of them situations you look at and you can panic like hell and say, you know what, I can't do this, I can't do this. So you can, you know, my mindset is I just need to figure out how I can do it. I don't need to worry about why I can't do it or how I can't do it. How can I do it? And,
They did it to me.
And that mentality is different when you start looking at that.
Well, I went from a 20% down to a 30% down.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Okay.
And that's because their radius was too small in the comps. Instead of like, let's say a 3 mile or a 5 mile radius in the comps, they only went to 1 mile, and they discounted one of my bedrooms, and they wouldn't let me compare to apartment complexes in the area. They said no, single family homes only. And so when you do that, there weren't as many sales in that 1 mile radius.
But so now that you got a track record on it, I mean, a DSCR loan should just be that your income from that right there will more than service it. Mm-hmm. So now that you're getting a track record on your income on that, would you be able to go do a cash out refi and pull more money if you wanted to? I mean, you probably don't want to at 8%, but could you?
After a year, I do have that option to do that, yes. So, but again, I was so determined. I had gone so far in the lending process that I just made it happen. Like that, I made that extra 10% happen. Just because I felt like I had gone so far in the deal, so far in the contract, that I wasn't about to get cold feet. Now I understand maybe I was only dealing with another, $10,000, $15,000. Obviously for you it's different. If you have to come up with an extra $3-4 million, I could squash any deal. I mean, Ken McElroy had a deal like that happen to him, where they were going to require extra X millions of dollars down, and he's just like, I'm done. Yeah. Which obviously there are some points where you're going to have a breaking point, but I felt like the window was closing because I did this on the heels of the interest rates peaking, and then and the market doing well. So I closed on that heel of the window closing for people like me, who is a 1099 employee. I don't have W-2s. So the lending, so even if, let's just say interest rates crash, the ability to borrow from the banks is smaller. Like your credit score is going to have to be in the mid 800s. Like I had a really awesome credit score. But the problem is, if all your other ducks aren't even in a row, like let's say I had a whole bunch of transactions, they were going to discount 30% of my transactions just because I'm a 1099 employee and all my income comes from different things. And it's like, it was practically like giving
So
blood.
they're discounting that down even though you got a track record of years of making this income for years.
Yeah.
See, that doesn't seem right for them to do that because you're 1099. I mean, you have a history.
But it happened to him as a W-2. He's had the same employer for over 24 years.
Really?
And even him with that over 770, 80, 800 credit score, it was like drawing blood for him.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
My underwriting process went on for weeks.
Yeah.
Back and forth, multiple emails that, we need a copy of this, we need a copy of, you paid $250 for this, what is that?
Yeah.
Oh, I bought some gold and silver. Do you do that all the time? Where is that now? Do you have it? Can you show us proof that you have this gold and silver?
They wanted me to have my gold and silver appraised at like $30 per bar or whatever. I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'm not taking my gold and silver out of my house or wherever I store it to get it appraised.
So I was a big silver guy, and we had 600,000-700,000 in silver, and it was all in my house. It's not now, so don't come around me. But it was all in my house. and our house was 3 stories high. And I was out of town and I had a piece of property. I put a contract on something. I needed some money. And I called Christine. I said, look, I got some silver upstairs. Now, she don't even know it's upstairs. You know, it's just some stuff I bought. And so I said, I got some silver upstairs. I need you to go get it. And I got Randy coming by. He's in from Florida. He's going to come by and grab it all from you and pay me for it. And she said, okay. So you talking $700,000 of silver.
It's a lot.
That's
heavy.
And at that time, I think it was only like, I think we got $18 an ounce for it at that particular point in time. And she called me up. She said, don't you ever, and I'm not going to say the word she used because it was not nice. She was pissed because she had to carry those bars down from 3 stories to bring them downstairs for him. And I mean, it was probably 30 boxes that she probably can't carry the whole box with 100 ounce, because it was all 100 ounce bars too. And she couldn't carry all the boxes. And so it was, she's like, but you know.
Yeah, so imagine taking that out of your house to get it appraised just so that you could go through an underwriting process. I was like, and first of all, it's personal security too. Like, I'm not going to transport this to an appraiser or pay the extra fee to have an appraiser come to my vault to go and check it out. Like, you either believe me or you don't believe me. And this wasn't even the money down part. This was the cash in reserves part.
Yeah.
So I had met like all the money down and I had proven where all of that came from. They just wanted to have X number of cash in reserves to make sure it wasn't going to go into foreclosure right away. But that's where this is going. Yeah. So even if the interest rates drop down to 3% or 5% again, don't count on that lending window opening for just the general public. Yeah. Don't count on, if you're a 24-year-old couch surfer living with mom and dad, that's going to open up your window to get a home again. Because those easy times may be permanently gone. So
are you feeling? I never felt any security. Now I know all these people are pushing gold and silver. I made my decision after sitting on that silver for so many years that I think I bought it at like 14 an ounce, sold it at like 18 an ounce. Okay, I made a little bit of money. Mm-hmm. I made a little bit of money, but after looking at that, if I would have took that same money and put it in a house, something that is only appreciating at 5%, I would have made a hell of a lot of money, a lot more money over a 5-year period of time if I would have just invested in real estate. And that's kind of where I was. I was sitting on it for so long and it just wasn't, it'd move a little bit and then it would go back a little bit and then it would move a little bit. So do y'all find security in your silver, or do you think people ought to do that? Or
I think the security comes from the diversification of it. Obviously, real estate market, especially from Florida where we live, it's been very, very hot for the last few years. Mm-hmm. Property values are all-time high, which is great if you've already owned the property. You have that money in there. There's a lot of uncertainty now. People are talking about, you're going to have a correction. So that house that you bought last week at $425,000, maybe it's creeping down a little bit, and you're not necessarily going to make that type of money. But if you can hedge your bet by saying, all right, well, gold and silver have a track record of slow, steady increase. So rather than risking something that's more volatile, you stick with at least part of your portfolio.
But even if the gold and silver didn't increase, let's just say it stayed flat, the fiat paper currency is only as valuable as people believe it is. It's based on faith now. It's not the US dollar is not backed by anything. Now, if you want to say the petrodollar and changing, the euro dollar and the petrodollar, yes. That's other countries, changing hands with oil and whatnot. And even that's at risk with BRICS.
I'm not ignoring you.
Totally
I want to run a number and say the number. I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you 100%.
But gold and silver, precious metals, have been a currency for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And they've lived through all currencies' life cycle, which is an average of 120 years. And so the US dollar, the US fiat currency, is at the edge and the end of its life cycle. Now, who's going to take over? That's to be debated. But the common analysis is saying you could have bought a suit, a nice tailored suit for, let's say, an ounce of gold back in 1950. That same gold ounce can still buy the same tailored suit today. So it's just saying it's a store of value. So even if, let's say we go into hyperinflation, gold and silver will still be a store of value forever. And you could still use it, like you could melt it down and make jewelry out of it. You could do the silver in the vehicles, and there's practical applications for it as well. It's not just like a chocolate bar. You know, it's not just like a suit. It's actual, like you can make it into so many different things. And not only that, but if you have the right denominations of, like, let's say gold, or silver rather, and the world goes to crap. Let's say all the ATMs stop working, all the banks have a bank run. You could trade that silver for anything still, bread or, you know, items, goods and services. It'll always be barterable. Whereas, you know, a house, you have a house. It's stuck in one location. When the world goes to crap and and the banks are frozen and the ATMs are frozen, yes, you have a house, but how are you going to barter that house? Unless you let other people stay in it.
So my comment to that is, people are going to have to pay me something to rent my houses still.
Yes. What do you want them to pay you in if they only have cows and silver?
I don't care if we're bartering, and it's something I can barter with somebody else with also. You know, if you're on gold or silver, okay, that runs out. It's still not producing you anything, and the Bible says that the poor will always be with us, right? Mm-hmm. Which, if you think the poor will always be with you, then the rich will always be with you also, right? So when your land appreciates at 40% a year because the dollar has devalued so much, now your piece of land that was worth $1 million is now worth, you know, let's say it's worth $1.8 million. You still got somebody that's going to be willing to pay that because the rich are there too, and they're going to be paying you in something. Now, is it going to be as fast? I don't know if it'll be as fast, but I don't know. I just, when I looked at the silver I was holding, and I looked at the appreciation that I got, which is what you're getting in gold, basically, in silver is just appreciation. But I look at my real estate, and I got appreciation in my real estate. Then I got cash for my real estate, so I also picked up, you know, on the same investment of $700,000, you know, that should be making me somewhere between, you know, $6,000, $5,000 a month worth of income, even on bad numbers, that I should be making every single month on that. So I lost out on that cash flow, and then I don't get my depreciation off of it, so I can't depreciate it off either. And then if I have that $700,000 leveraged, all those numbers really change a whole lot more. And now I got principal reduction in there, and probably leveraged it from $700,000 to at least $2 million.
Well, and look at it from this perspective. As if you keep look at your entire portfolio. If you keep only 10% for what's called insurance, gold and silver, then you don't think about that. Let's just say you just take a little bit off the plate just for insurance. I mean, you pay insurance on your houses. You pay insurance for your car. My
insurance on my houses has insurance. Everything we're double and tripled insured on to protect us, to make sure that
that's right.
No matter what, we ain't losing.
But you do that as a protection measure. So gold and silver is kind of like a protection measure. It's like saying, okay, I make X amount of money, X goes to, let's say, taxes, X goes to insurance. So gold and silver is kind of like an insurance that you kind of put over here. Now, if Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum take over the world, and they say, oh...
They haven't already taken over the world?
Well, not 100,000%, but if you say, if they come over here...
They're pretty close, ain't they?
They're close. If they come to the United States, well, think about it. They're doing it slowly through property taxes. They come over here and they say, okay, we're nationalizing the United States. All property is government owned. Now what? All your houses belong to the government. And they lock and board up all your houses and they guard all your land with military. Now what? If you have a little bit of gold and silver somewhere, you still might be able to do something.
Well, they took the gold and silver away from people, or they took the gold away from people.
Well, actually, that was a volunteer turn-in back in 1970.
There was a voluntary turn-in, but also at that same time, what was it, in the 40s or whenever they took everybody's gold? Was it? Correct me, because you are way more versed on that stuff than I am for certain. She works. So if you ever watch the Rebel Capitalist live, Angelique runs a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff for George Gammon on that show and through his organization. So she's definitely on top of all of that stuff. But there was a time whenever the gold was no longer even legal for us to own. Right. So they can say it was a voluntary turn-in. Okay, that's voluntary. But if you get caught with it and you didn't turn it in, you go to jail. That doesn't seem real voluntary to me.
Actually, heirloom gold, like specific types of gold and silver,
you could hold.
You're allowed to still hold. It was like more of the monetary gold and silver that they could see.
All right, so what was the price of gold we are in 2024, 1984. What do you think the price of gold was in 1984?
I don't recall.
I'm going to say $400 an ounce. It was right there at 400. You know, everybody wants to say, well, look what gold has done since 1970. Okay, well, gold has done it since 1970. You can't take that into consideration because the government took us off the gold standard, you know, and everything changed, and that caused gold to boost over the next 10 years like crazy. And then once it got to about $400 an ounce, it kind of stabilized there for almost a decade. You know, it stabilized. So about 1984, and anybody on this video can go back and Google it. I haven't Googled it. We're just sitting here talking. So, but you can Google, and it's probably going to be somewhere around $400 an ounce. So I put in my calculator. If gold was $400 an ounce in 1984, that's 480 months ago. So we got $400 of present value. Let's say you earn 5% interest on that right there, compounded year over year over year. Our future value in 2024 would be $2,943. So where's gold at right now?
It's over $2,000 something right now.
So so that tells us it's not appreciating at 5% year over year, since we're not going to go back to 1970. We're going to go back to 1984, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So if we put 4% interest in there, future value would be 1975. Which probably isn't too far off, right? I don't know.
We've been holding steady over 2,000 for at least the past month or so.
You're looking at about 4.5%.
So you're looking at roughly 4.5% over 4 decades that you made off of that. That is only appreciation. So for 4 decades, not you, but for 4 decades, let's take somebody like Robert Kiyosaki, who will tell you, I've been holding this stuff since the 60s. I've been holding it since this. I've been holding it since that, and still today. You know, as I listen to Robert's show, I'm still listening to Robert tell people to go buy gold. Still listening to Robert tell people to go buy silver. And if I bought it in '84 at $400 an ounce, and I held it for 40 years, you throw the cash flow, depreciation, principal reduction on top of that just appreciation, and you're leaving, I guarantee you, hundreds of millions of dollars on the table over a very short period of time.
You can't announce this on camera.
This is my lovely bride right here, Christina. Most of y'all know her. That is a lot of my concern. Is I see people that are holding it for 10 years, and I know gold. What was it 10 years ago? Maybe 1,500? Yeah. Something like that. So it's went up 500 over the last 10 years. I I'm looking at them and saying, okay, they're holding it forever, but they're losing so much opportunity with that.
Well, but
and
again,
made all from the fear tactic of saying, you know what, we're going to lose everything and we're going to be all in the streets. Well, look at Venezuela. And, you know, when Venezuela collapsed, the depreciation of their assets or of all of their money went down. The people that had assets, those people did pretty daggone well. And they're not poor today. But the working class people that did not invest into something else. Now, if they invested in gold, then they're going to get the appreciation of that for sure. But really, to go to the point that we're in a barter system, our whole economy has went to nothing. And we're correct, am I wrong? We're completely collapsed as a nation at that point. We got people killing each other in the streets at that point, which I don't guess it takes much. Look at 2020, right? It don't take much for people to be killing each other in the streets. But, you know.
But people were buying groceries in Venezuela with gold nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
People were paying for haircuts in Venezuela with gold, like a little, I don't forget what they call it, gold flake. You know, so they were bartering. The poorest people that did have gold were bartering in Venezuela when it had hyperinflation. And again, I'm not saying you're wrong at all.
No, I know. I'm just.
But what I'm saying,
this is a friendly debate for people that are running through the same stuff, trying to say, what the hell do I do?
But think about, again, if you look at it from the insurance aspect, do you ever get your car insurance back? Do you ever get your health insurance premiums back? Do you ever get your home insurance premiums back?
Well, here's what I can tell you. I don't put full coverage insurance on any of my vehicles. Even my brand new vehicles I buy, I don't put full coverage insurance on them. Never have. When I was running 70 vans, I didn't put full coverage on any of my vehicles. I put liability only. I paid cash for them. I put liability insurance on them. And liability insurance, I bet you I didn't replace one van a year that was my fault. Most of the wrecks were somebody else's fault. And so because of that, you know, it was easier. My insurance was so much money, I could buy like 2 new vans a year and pay cash for them on what the savings was on my insurance for my vehicles. So I just weighed the odds and I said it's cheaper for me to put general liability on it or just regular liability insurance on it, and I will buy a new van if they wreck it. Mm-hmm. So there's, you know, and that is an evaluation of looking at how much you're spending. You know, if you're spending $400 a month on insurance, you know, then you look at it, you know, my son was spending, you know, full coverage on a 2011 Camaro. You know, I'm like, why are you spending that much money for full coverage? Well, Dad, if something happens to us, we can put that money in the bank. Mm-hmm. Put it in the bank and just sit on it and then go buy a new car in 4 years. You know, and just on the money you're saving from that.
Well, that's another thing, though, too, about gold and silver is a hedge against inflation in a way. Because if you were a person that's not involved in real estate and they were just putting that money in the bank, with inflation,
you're in trouble.
That's correct.
You're in trouble.
You are.
All right, so explain to them why they're in trouble with that.
Well, I mean, you're looking at it through the lens of all the benefits you get through real estate and all the tax deductions and the depreciation. But if you're like, you know, 90-year-old grandma who just keeps squirreling away her money in the bank, well, if inflation, your interest, okay, everybody knows that they're only going to get maybe 0.001 or 0.01% interest on their money in the bank. Even if you have a money market account, maybe you're getting 2% interest, maybe you're getting 3% interest. If inflation...
So what you're talking about there is if you need your money somewhat liquid, where you can get it. If you're not tying it up for years, you're tying it up where this is where it is, it's making me a little bit, but if I got to have it next week, I can get my money out. That's what you're talking about.
That's correct.
That scenario, okay.
That's correct. So even if you have it in a money market account with a minimum balance and you're making 2 or 3%, even if you go by the wonky number the government tells you the inflation is at 3.5%, you're still negative 5% on your cash. And so if you go by John Williams' shadow stats, it shows inflation somewhere between 8 and 12%. You're still negative. Your paper dollars or your zeros and ones in your bank account are going, the value is going way less than any type of interest that you're making by having your money not working for you. So your dollar, your paper dollar, when you do get it out of the bank, good luck trying to get it out of the bank, by the way.
If there's a mad rush on it, yeah.
Because you say it's liquid. You say it's liquid, but if you want to go take out more than a couple grand, they start asking you questions.
Yeah.
It's not your money.
You have to make a reservation to take cash out.
Oh, by the way, yeah, they changed it. That money isn't yours. It's invested. As soon as you put $5 in the bank account, it's not yours. They reinvest it. You are an investor in the bank now. They're not a holder of your money anymore. So forget all that.
I never heard that.
No, it's true. They actually changed the terms. Like when you put any type of money in a bank, you are an investor in that bank. There's no, hey, we're just holding on to it for you. So they have the right to invest it however they want. And if you call them out on it, they have to give it back to you, but good luck. If Janet Yellen determines that your bank is not a critical bank, good luck with the FDIC
Well, Silicon Valley
insurance.
shut the bank down, right? Hey, well, I'm sorry, we can't give you any money right now. We don't have it. When Silicon Valley
And
did.
only
Now,
because
and
she just
a month
determined
later,
it.
everything's fine, but you know,
Okay, how
that
many-
short-term panic is pretty bad.
But 62% of all Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Can they afford to wait a month for the FDIC to figure that out?
All right, so anybody that listens to me, I fail in this area. I don't live my week or my year paycheck to paycheck. So the avenue that Angelique and Bo are coming from is way different than the avenue that I come from, because I don't even look at that. I'm just saying this is what I'm doing, and I'm thinking 5 years from now what I'm doing right now. I'm not thinking what I'm even going to do this year. I don't care. You know, this is my goal, where I'm heading, and that's my only focus, and that's what I focus on. And I lose track of reality with that sometimes. Not that I got tons of money in the bank. I rarely have any money in the bank. You know, I spend everything I make on investments, but you know, I understand that we're getting, you know, hundreds of thousands a month on cash flow.
Yeah.
So when that comes in, we got the money, and I don't think about it from that perspective. So
Yeah. Well, when you're
I
balancing,
appreciate that.
yeah, balancing your liquidity versus, like in my case, I have a government pension coming. So
Maybe. Again, don't count on Uncle Sam.
Yeah, Florida is thankfully
Pretty secure.
a very secure state. We're solvent. So I know my pension is going to cover my monthly bills. So that's not a stress point for me. Then I have other money put aside, investments from deferred compensation, to other real estate deals that I've done in the past that have given me something that I need to keep liquid if I want to use that for, you know, future investment or real estate. If I want to buy some property, I want to, you know, put some money down on something. Currently, because the inflation rate is high, the interest rates everywhere are high, I have the ability to put money into a CD, a 6-month CD at 5.5%, which is unheard of. Because 5 years ago, you'd be lucky if you can get 1.5. So
I think it would have been 1986. I got my first CD, and I think it was like $500 I put in or something like that. And I want to say it was earning about 4%, 3 or 4% or something back then.
because the interest rates are
And then it went down to, you know, 1/2 of 1%.
Yeah,
So, but it's at 5% right now.
yeah, you can get certain banks. I actually I do most of my banking through Chase. I was able to get 5% through them. Now it was a $100,000 minimum or a $50,000 minimum for that particular CD. Thankfully, I had that liquid assets to put in there to take advantage of that. I can't touch it for the 6 months because of the penalties.
Mm-hmm.
So until that 6-month window comes, I don't get any of that money. It's basically money that'll get thrown in.
So why do you put that in a CD rather than invest it in short-term T-bills
He
or
should have
something like
done
that?
that.
So the short-term T-bills are twice as much they're earning right now than long-term 20-year T-bills or 10-year T-bills. I mean, the longer it goes out, it seems like the less they're willing to pay you for it.
Yeah.
That tells you how much confidence anybody really has in our country whenever they say, we'll give you short-term money at a much higher interest rate than we will long-term money, because we really think this is going to fall off the freaking cliff, and we might not be able to meet that obligation.
We're looking at the Treasury yield curve has been inverted since July of 2022. And if you're looking at recessions, which the yield curve inversion has predicted 99% of the time, around 18 to 24 months is that recession beginning window.
Can you explain to everybody what that means, an inverted yield curve?
So it's the difference between the 2-year and the 10-year Treasury yield. So
So in a normal situation, and we're just hypothetically, so let's go back 10 years ago, 5 years ago when Trump was in office, because everything was running pretty smooth 3 years ago. If you look at that, what would the yield curve, what would it look like at that particular point in time?
So, well, in general, what it's supposed to be, as you were alluding to earlier, is you invest your money in the United States Treasury. For 10 years, you should get a higher return versus if you invest your money in the Treasury for 2 years.
And when she's saying return, she's talking about yield. So when she's talking about yield, she's talking about return. So
Correct.
It should be where the longer out you invest, hey, I'm going to invest this for 20 years. Well, we'll give you more money for that because they get to hold your money for 20 years and do that. And then the shorter stuff, well, if you're only going to do it for this long, we'll give you less money. Correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct. So let's just say, for simplicity's sake, 10 years gives you 5% and 2 years gives you 2%. Well, right now, it's the opposite. 2 years is giving you close to 5% and 10 years is giving you close to, let's say, 3%. It's inverted and it's been changed, fluctuating.
Wasn't last year it was like 10% on a 1 year or a 6 month Treasury?
I don't think it ever hit that high.
I listened to George on it, and I'm lost as last year's Easter eggs half the time I'm listening to him because he's so far above me when he's talking. And then finally it hits me. I think it took me 2 years to realize what he was talking about with the yield curve. Listening to him say it, and I listen to him every week because I learn a little bit, but I'm just a slow learner with that, and it just takes a while.
Well, let's just say, for simplicity's sake,
Hold on, before you say anything. That is the difference between the class we teach and the class other people teach.
That's correct.
He doesn't teach down on our level enough for people who don't understand what he's talking about to ever understand. And it takes when you're here, it takes a lot to get to here. And then once you get here, you can go all the way up here with no big deal. But if you never get the fundamentals of it, you stay lost. And that's where I've always been with a lot of stuff whenever George does it, is I'm lost in the fundamentals. I don't understand the basic part of it. So whenever he starts really breaking it down at a higher level, I pick up little bits and pieces and I'm putting in pieces together. But you spend a year of listening to him for, twice a week, or, he'll do 4 a day, but they're not all on that kind of stuff. But, it's hard. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, he tries to do it in the whiteboards a little bit. He breaks it down a little bit more. But yeah, you have to start on a little bit of a level. Anyway, for simplicity's sake, there's a 2-year yield and a 10-year yield. Right now, since July of 2022, the 10-year yield has been below the 2-year yield, which means the curve is inverted. The 2-10 spread, they call it. And there are different years in the Treasury yield curve that you can use, but the 2s and the 10s are the most commonly referred to. And in 99% of the time that curve has been inverted for longer than, let's say, 18 to 24 months, it has predicted a recession almost every single one of those times. And right now, we're in that 20-ish month mark.
We're way in there. But the times they say that it may not have, you got to really fudge the numbers to make it look like we didn't go into a recession.
Right.
It was a recession. It may not have been as bad as people said, but we were still. And I think it's debatable right now whether we're in a recession or not. And I think a lot of people will say, well, we're in a small recession right now, and that's possible. But your opinion is we'll be in World War III by the end of 2024.
We already are in World War III.
I understand, but most people don't believe that.
I know.
Most people don't believe that.
But if you think about it, we will follow
So what happens?
Europe.
What happens to the money at that point? We go into a World War III, and you study this kind of stuff. I don't study this kind of stuff, but we go into a world war like that. What happens to the money?
Well, it depends on what's impacted. So right now we're looking at fuel as being impacted by what's going on in the Red Sea, and we can only release a certain amount of fuel from our SPR. Now we are still okay with fuel, but the more fuel, the more food, the more grain that's blockaded by war activities, and the more shipping that's impacted by war activities, we're going to see inflation again. The cost of living is going to go back skyrocket, and the Fed's not going to be able to take care of that.
I love inflation, by the way.
Inflation is good to a certain
I
extent.
love inflation. I know everybody else don't like it, but inflation is good to me.
But you
I
got to.
shouldn't say that, huh?
I like it.
I'm just saying it's, for me, hell, 2 years ago we were making more than $1,000 an hour every single hour of the year on appreciation of our properties. How can I not love it?
Yeah.
Now it destroys everything else and everybody else.
Yeah. Anybody that doesn't have.
So we are anti-inflation because it destroys our country. But
But in a way, though, back when inflation was higher, people were getting stimulus money. Let's say World War III happens and people can't afford to rent or buy your properties anymore. Then what are you going to do?
well, I'm only 23% leveraged.
Well, see, that's good for you.
So, and right now we're probably fixing to reduce that leverage even more, probably a little bit below 20% because I got a
But
couple
that's
properties
smart.
I'm selling.
That's really smart.
So-
But when World War III happens and production stops because nobody could get supplies, nobody could get materials, because if you look at the recent manufacturing surveys, the Empire Manufacturing Survey that has just come out, like, we're not making anything in this country, like nothing. And if we're all relying on China and India, especially for our pharmaceuticals, good luck. We are not, if China and India cuts us off completely on pharmaceuticals and goods, forget it, your inflation. You want to see inflation, we're going to experience that potentially high.
But for China or India to cut us off, they would be cutting their own throats because we are their largest, we're the largest country they export to.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them.
One of them.
So if that's the case, I mean, they're bankrupt. They're bankrupt. All not. I don't know about India as much as China. I mean, China's already basically bankrupt. They're not doing very well. So for them to cut their own throat in that, I mean, it's even going to be worse for them. I mean, so I look at it from, can China do it? China can do it, but is it going to destroy their own country in the same thing?
Well, being partnered with Russia, that does have a lot of natural resources. It will help them out a little bit.
But Russia's struggling as much as anybody else too. I mean, they got some natural resources, but is Russia not just as bankrupt as anybody else?
Russia again. Russia has
I'm not
a
saying
lot
that,
of
but
natural
we're
resources.
but we good right now because we own the national reserve currency. Until that goes away, we control it.
And then the BRICS
Yeah.
is a real threat. China, Russia, you have all these nations in Africa, everybody jumping on board. You know, they're whittling away at the majority of our reserve currency.
It may not be an immediate threat, but again, you got to look at.
I think we're 10 years out at least before we got to worry about anything like that. 'Cause I think it'll take that long to move the money around, and I don't think the BRICS is strong enough to do anything at the moment. I'm not going to discount that down as much as some people will discount it.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I don't believe it's an immediate threat. However, World War III is an immediate threat. And what I mean by that is if all the supply chain gets slowed down, not even just by World War III events, but by droughts in the Panama Canal, we were restricted on shipping from what happened in a natural disaster with that. And coupling that with World War III events, the manufacturing, since we don't make anything really in the United States.
And just about nothing. I agree with that.
Right. And
I mean,
so even, let's say China still wants to
and they're
do
still
business.
trying to put out our farmers. They're trying to put our farmers out of business and make us import more food. I mean, I'm becoming a little bit of a conspiracy theorist because of what I've seen happen in my city I live in and what our government is they're imploding within, and they're doing it on purpose to hurt our city. As I'm watching that and I look at the stuff going on in our country, and it looks like the same freaking thing. I mean, who goes out there and tries to put the farmers out of business? Who goes out there and tries to say you can't, you can only have so many cattle on your land. You can only do this. And then you got these stupid people coming out of college that say we need to do away with all cows because their farts are affecting the environment, and we can't do this because this it is a crazy it is a crazy world we live in.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can look in Europe And they're a year or two ahead of us
Yeah.
in this.
They're taking their farms away from the farmers.
The downward slide, they're already ahead of us. And the people who are over there are waking up. Unfortunately, there's not enough of them. They're telling us, look at what's happening. This is happening to you. You're right behind us.
Yep.
You need to do something.
I agree.
Well, that's with China and the AI and the technology. If you look at what is prescribed for the United States, look at what they said the model was during the illness, let's say. China was the model for the lockdowns, for the facial scanning, for the travel restrictions, for quarantine.
Social justice work.
Yes. So if you want to know what's coming to the United States, look at what China was doing in 2020, 2021. And that's what the World Health Organization is trying to do to the world.
You know my concern about that statement is? I think a lot of the news media in our country wants to make China look like the hero.
Sure.
They want to make every failing country around out to be the hero. They're great people. Look how great they do on this right here. But they never give the people, and there's a lot of people out there that listen to the news, and that is their source of what they're going to run off of. They're going to run off what that news says, which means America's bad and everybody else is great. When the fact is, America is bad, but we're still the greatest freaking ones out there. I mean, as bad as we are, we're the best out there. And so I'm going to move over here and I'm going to move here. You can move. Is that a better environment? I don't know. I mean, Georgia's living in Medellin. I mean, is it actually a better environment for them? Is it that much better, or is it really just a basic thing and you got to put up with all the bullshit stuff you got to put up with here to a certain degree?
Well, they're also going through their own war.
Yeah.
You know, they have guerrilla warfare over in Medellin and Guatemala and all the countries in South America. They always have upheavals there.
They're unrest
So
up
I
there.
think every country is subject to civil war, to politics, and who gets elected, and look at the World Economic Forum. It represents the world. So there are going to be leaders from every country that go there that are installed by the World Economic Forum.
Them
that are
freaking
going.
people just have an agenda.
Yes.
They got an agenda.
Yes.
They ain't out to protect the
There's
world. They
no
got an
country
agenda.
that's immune.
They got an agenda.
No country is immune from what's going to happen.
No, I agree.
And it's just, I think what George does is more of an arbitrage. He sees it as cost of living. He likes the life over there. He likes, the different lifestyle of America. And
Now he left Medellin whenever the lockdowns were in
Yes, he
play
did.
because it was so bad,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, I'm just not living like this.
Personal freedoms.
Yeah.
well, even Puerto Rico did that because he tried fleeing to Puerto Rico as well.
Yeah,
Rico was like,
Puerto Rico is horrible. Puerto Rico is horrible. Okay, so we've been down this rabbit hole for quite some time, and I have really enjoyed that. Let's get back to these numbers. Let's talk about that for a minute. And they got a plane at 5 o'clock, and we're gonna, or 6 o'clock, whatever time we gotta get to the airport. But we're gonna do a property tour and look at some properties and talk about some stuff. So I don't want to kill a whole day on this right here, even though all of us would probably just enjoy talking about it all day long too. That's not a big deal either, because that's where we live our lives. We live in that world. So most people don't. They're oblivious to half of the stuff we even just talked about, but it is what it is. All right, so we talked about me and number 3 talking to number 2 about this deal right here. And if you don't understand what I just said, go back and find the video wherever Nick has it. It'll be in there. So we found a piece of property for $30,000. 30-acre lot. I'm gonna put 2 units on it. I'll do 2-bedroom, 2-bath houses. We figuring, I put here that we would rent these units out for $1,550 a month. I think they will rent for more than that. That is worst case scenario. That's what I'm getting on some duplexes I have right now in another area. Or not far from that where we're building, but that's what we're getting. So I know those numbers work. So we're gonna build roughly 1,100 square foot. Now, if we're gonna go 2-2s, we may drop it down to 1,000 square foot or even 900 square foot if I'm gonna have an architect design it for me. And I probably will have an architect design it for me if I'm not gonna use a footprint that I already own. So if we did 2,200 square foot houses, we figuring our cost, land included, all in to be $300,000. Can you do that in Florida?
No.
What part of it can't you do? And I'm gonna ask stupid questions in here because
The build, I would say the build part. You could still find decent priced land in Florida, but as far as the build, the complete build cost of materials, probably not.
But are the cost of materials in Florida truly more than the cost of materials in here? I mean, wood is a commodity. Glass is a commodity. Wire is a commodity.
Post-pandemic, everything climbed significantly, and then it came back down. But now that the larger commercial builders are going full bore again, getting your hands on stuff is so difficult because they get everything. They buy everything in bulk.
Okay.
So smaller builders have a little bit more difficult time. For me, I think that's less of a concern than the actual land.
So I can build this house for $90 a square foot. 100. I intend to build that for 90 a square foot. Now, if things really go bad, I may go up to 100 a square foot. And I'm getting into 100 a square foot when I'm building more of a custom house with more custom cabinets, more custom trim, more custom stuff like that. Not a rental property. I mean, I'm just not hitting those numbers on rental property. So I talked to somebody at one of the conferences we was at, and they were saying they were paying more like $240 a square foot for somebody to build for them. So do y'all know what the square footage price for construction, is?
It's in between because you can buy existing homes for anywhere from $219 to $250 a square foot. The build price obviously is lower than that. I'm going to say probably depending on your fit and finish, what type of construction. Pretty much everything down there is block. Probably 150 to 160, and that's
Using a GC?
yeah.
Okay. So if we got 2,200 square foot at 150, that still ain't gonna be a bad price. So now we're talking 330,000. I should have been able to do that in my head, huh? So now we're talking 330,000, still only 30,000 more
That's
than what we got right there.
Before your land.
So your land's gonna throw a little bit more into it.
If you want something where you're going to have a good rental return, say in Hillsborough County, you couldn't get a third of an acre for 30,000. It's going to be at least double that.
Okay.
Probably
So now you had 390.
390, 400. Yeah.
Okay. So we're at 390, but what's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath rent for in Florida compared to what it rents for here? Can you rent that for $1,500?
Minimum like 2,700.
All right. So if you're really looking at this through a clear glass window, apples to apples, Florida may be more money if you're at $2,700 a month on rent, if you can build that.
Yeah.
Getting
the deal started is the hard part.
So you just gotta do it.
Yeah.
So they talk about price dropping in housing market, that we're gonna have some people think we're gonna have a housing crash. I don't think anybody in this room thinks we're gonna have a housing crash by any means. I don't think that, and before I give my answer, I will want y'all to give me what your answer is. Why do y'all think houses are, 15% less, and would y'all say houses are 15% cheaper now than what they were 2 years ago?
15? I think it depends.
10%? What you think?
Depends on the area. I would say Tampa is holding its own, maybe 5% cheaper.
Okay, so houses are 5% cheaper. Why are houses 5% cheaper?
Because they can't sell them because the interest rate's higher.
So we just sold Heather. Y'all have watched the videos that we did on Heather. So we discounted the price on Heather down, but we didn't discount it down because the house ain't worth more money. We discounted it down because the amount of people that can go buy a house right now at 8% interest or 7.5% interest, they're able to buy half the house they could buy 2 years ago at 3%. So now they're settling, and this is a huge emotional roller coaster for people because they're like, son of a bitch, I could have got this house the other day, and now I didn't make my move then, now I've got to be here. And I think that is an emotional thing that's really affecting a lot of people, that they didn't jump on that bandwagon 2 years ago and buy a house, and now they're in a position they can't afford near the house they could afford 2 years ago. So that's driving the price down a little bit. Not that the house ain't worth the money. I look at houses being worth, if it's going to cost me $300,000 to build that house, land included, that house will be worth probably about $450 as a duplex, probably about $450, maybe $500. And you look at that, and the prices can't come down less than what people can build them for. And that's where a lot of the older houses you're looking at, they're saying, well, they're going to keep dropping. Well, they can't drop cheaper than you can replace it. I mean, if you can't go build one for that price, then the builders aren't going to go build a house that costs $300,000 to build for $300,000. There's too much risk in there. What if this goes wrong, that goes wrong? I would say the average home builder's probably got, what would y'all say profit in it?
I don't know what their profit is.
I would say a minimum of 30%. I don't know anybody that's going to go out there and work on building a house and not make at least 30% profit off of it. I wouldn't touch it for 30. I wouldn't touch it for 70. I mean, my goal on building a house is I want to make 100% return on that investment if I sell it. And I don't know that we've ever done a house that we didn't make 100% return when we sold it. Now, I don't sell a whole lot of houses. We can probably count them on one hand what I've sold.
The builders down there right now, when things were really rocking and rolling, they were cranking out houses left and right, and they were selling. As the interest rates got higher, the market kind of dried up for them, and they still had all these houses under construction.
So they're using construction loans.
Yeah.
So those people are sitting on millions and millions of debt that they're having to service, and that's how a lot of people bankrupted in 2008, 2009.
Exactly.
They couldn't sit on the inventory.
Yeah. So what a lot of them have done is they've taken entire neighborhoods and said, okay, well, if nobody can afford to buy the house, we're going to rent it.
Yeah.
So these neighborhoods where you'll have homes that are, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 new homes at the selling price, nobody can rent those, or nobody can afford to buy those right now at 8% or more. They've all turned into rentals. And now you have people who they don't have the means to get that loan, but they can't afford $4,000 a month.
Well, you got Wall Street coming in buying those neighborhoods and stuff like that, which the
BlackRock.
government's trying to stop that now.
BlackRock does.
So, they're coming in, BlackRock,
Yep.
and they're buying all these houses. And
that's exactly what they have entire neighborhoods.
yeah,
And then they realize, oh, okay, well, now we have all these people, or now have all these homes. These are some of them high-end homes. Well, you're still in the same boat because nobody's paying $4,000, $5,000 a month for rent. So they either have to leave it empty and take the hit, or they have to rent it out for far less just to cut their losses.
yeah.
Well, and some of them stopped building those phases altogether.
Yeah. And you just have half-built homes. You just have foundation, block structure, and it's been sitting for a year.
Well, when we were talking to Kim McElroy, he stopped. He's finishing up any apartment complex they're building, but they got nothing new coming online at all. And that's nationwide. A lot of builders are saying, we're not building anything new. We're finishing up these deals that we got money invested in it. Ryan Holmes has started a brand new neighborhood down the road, and they're building. But they're building 1,100 square foot houses, from what I understand. They're not real big houses, they're small houses. Mm-hmm. And if you look in the world of people that can afford a house, they're building 1,000 square foot house, and they're in the low 300s that they're selling them for. And, so they're probably building them for, $100,000, mm-hmm. maybe $120,000, because they're putting 400 of them in, 350 in. So they're still making a great return on their investment, but the pool of people that can afford a $300,000 house is so much larger than the pool of people that can afford a $450,000 house.
Even though that's the median average price, basically, of all the houses that
Yeah.
are being sold right now.
Is what?
In the 400s.
Yeah, yeah.
Mid 400, like close to mid 400s right now.
All right, so let's get back. We digress, and then we come back. So we're looking at $1,550 is what we're using, so $3,100 a month. So we got $300,000 invested. We put the bank note. So I'm gonna build all cash. And the reason I'm building with all cash and not borrowing any money is I wanna pull all my money out at the end. So we're gonna go back to 0% invested in the deal and infinite return. I got no money. Everything I make is clear profit because there's no investment. So with that being said, we factoring on pulling out the full 300,000. I did it at 7% on 25 years, 300K. Now, by the end of this year, because I haven't started this house yet, so it'll be right around election time when I finish it. So that will be probably the cheapest the interest rates are going to be this year, I would say, or next year, because they're going to drop them as much as they can. So I will do my finance then. I'm hoping I get 7%. I feel like I can. What y'all feel? Can I get 7% then? You think so?
I think it'd be close to 7, yeah.
So if we can get 7%, now we're looking at $2,100 that we're going to be getting $25,444 a year worth of income annually. We're going to have rents of $37,000 off of the top, okay? So that's $37,000. That's at 100% rented. We need to put a vacancy factor in there, drop it down, because obviously nothing's going to stay rented 100% of the time. So we'll drop that in a moment. So we got our expenses for the year. Property management fee is going to be $2,900 a year. You're going to self-manage your property?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, but should you factor in a management fee whenever you're doing your numbers?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Because it has to be maintained no matter what. It's not for free.
What happens if I'm not
So-
able to?
But
There's still
and you should get
materials.
paid too. I mean, if you're doing it, I mean, you should get paid. So if a property management company draws 8%, let's say one of y'all get in a car wreck, and the other person's got to stay home and take care of them. You just can't do it. I just can't. I can't even fathom being able to deal with this right now. You hand it over to somebody else who does it, who owns a property management company. They're going to charge you 8%. You already got those numbers figured in your stuff, so you're not out in the cold saying, well, I didn't figure that in there, now I'm losing my ass on it. We don't want that. So then we got property insurance at $2,000, property taxes at $2,600. We want to caution everybody, whenever you're running your numbers, use the actual property taxes you're going to pay, not what's on Zillow, not what's on Redfin, not what's on anything else. Don't look at your county assessor's office. That house is going to change based off of what you pay for it. So this house we're going to pull permits. We're going to say it's $300,000 where we're going to be. That is going to be the number they're going to use. They're going to use that number. And so we're going to be right there in line. So what we do is we take the 300K, we multiply it times 25% because we're assessed at a 25% rate. Whatever that number is, we pay roughly $3.50 per $100 of assessment. We multiply that out, and that's how we come up with this $2,625. Then we figure $500 per side on maintenance costs on a yearly basis. Is that good?
Paint, flooring, yeah.
So we're talking about a brand new house that we just built. So I know I'm not gonna have water heater issues. I know I'm not gonna have air conditioning issues. We gotta do the scheduled maintenance and stuff like that right there, but it really should be very little more than that right there for the first 10 years of your house. And that's the benefit of going with a newer house, building something over buying an older house, because you gotta go in and fix it. If they got a 5-year-old water heater, say, well, I'm not gonna replace it right now, and then you put that off for a year and say, I'm not going to replace it. And let's say in year number 6 or year number 7, the tank actually burst, ruins the whole flooring system and everything else. Because if it's a small leak and it's running on the floor and it's draining through underneath the house, wherever, is that homeowner going to call you? They're probably not going to notice. Not homeowner, but renter. They're probably not even going to notice. And it ain't no big deal, So what that does is cause you tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage. So, I'm always pro. If you're moving out of that house and that water heater's 6 years old and it's an 8-year water heater, I'm gonna change that water heater. I'm gonna make sure that it gets changed out before it breaks if I can. So anyway, so we got $1,000 in maintenance on a yearly basis, and then I put in there $700 between legal and accounting. $700 will cover one eviction a year and what it costs me to do my extra accounting on that one house. Are we going to have an eviction every year? No, we have an eviction. Out of everything we own, I think we have about six to eight evictions across the whole year. I mean, across everything. So it's not a real big number. So we add up all of our expenses, $9,301 annually. Any questions?
No.
Anything we got to add that we don't know? Now, if you're building, you got a homeowners association, you got to put that in expenses. I mean, it needs to be total expenses of everything that we're dealing with.
So I do have a question. Where is the permitting costs in this? I know you kind of mentioned it under expenses, but I don't see it.
You talking about permitting to build the houses?
Yeah, because right
It's
here.
included in the 300.
Okay.
So for me to pull the permits is going to cost me probably somewhere around $3,000 to permit to build the houses.
And does that include the final pass-off inspections on the
Yeah.
house?
Yep,
Okay.
I should have a certificate of occupancy at the end and be ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
Now, where y'all are, I have no idea what the permits are. I know you go pull a permit in California, man, they're ridiculous how much they are over there. So I don't know.
Our permits aren't bad.
Not too bad?
Our taxes and property insurance are higher.
The insurance is in Florida is a big problem right now, and I think that the line items in Florida for taxes and property insurance can fluctuate wildly.
So
Depend where you are.
So this year or last year, our insurance went up 38% across the board on every property we have.
Okay.
And what we got as the reason why it was going up is because they were spreading the losses between Florida, Louisiana, Texas, California, wherever else, everywhere they got insurance, they were spreading the risk across our whole country. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that's garbage. I don't think that's my responsibility. I don't live in Florida. I don't have the joy of going out to the beach every day, so why should I have the extra expenses of somebody else that does have that joy? Mm-hmm. But that's what they're doing in all of us. I mean, we took a huge hit in insurance, which I'm not taking any hit because my tenants are going to pay that. My rent goes, my bills go up, that rent goes up because I'm going to maintain my same exact number that I want to maintain in my profit margin. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Yeah. Well, the like I said, but the taxes, being a rental or investment property, anything like that, you lose all your homestead exemptions. So, in this example, you probably add $700-800 to those taxes per year.
Explain that to me, home exemption.
In Florida, there's a couple of different functions that they have that prevent people from overpaying on the property taxes. You take your actual, let's say your $300 or $300,000 assessment. If it's your homestead, if it's your primary residence, and you can verify that this is yours, it's the only one that you have in the state, then they take $50,000 off the top of that. If you are a active duty military, if you're a senior citizen, you have veteran disability, they whittle away more and more of that. So you're only paying taxes essentially on maybe $200.
So I think the only exemptions we're having here with that is, I know they will give senior citizens some exemptions where they get some of their money back on the taxes, if not all of it, for some of the county. And I know there are some stuff like that. But we had a homestead exemption when I lived in Mississippi, but that was so long ago I couldn't even tell you what it was. But
yeah, because my primary residence, I have the benefit of that. And then we also have what they call the Save Your Home or Save Our Homes law, where I can't have an increase of more than 3% per year.
In property, in your property taxes?
Yeah. So regardless of how my property goes, say, it increases in value 40% over the next 5 years. They can only reassess me at 3% more per year. And then that benefit, you have what's called portability. So say I want to sell my house and I'm paying $186,000 less than market value because of my exceptions and my 3% that I picked up over the years. When I sell this house and buy a new one, I apply for homestead at that one, they will transfer that over, and that $186,000 basically deficit that I have between my value and my taxable value, I carry that with me to my next house.
How often do they do an assessment on your properties?
They do your initial purchase, they do a full assessment, and then I think they do market adjustments every year.
Every year. So here we do an assessment. I think they do the assessments every 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So we have two different counties that Millersville's in. Millersville's in Robertson County and Sumner County. Robertson County did an assessment last year. I think it came back at, I think it was 38% is what it wound up coming back at. So they did a 38% increase on everybody's taxes in Robertson County. So Sumner County's is coming this year, and I'm expecting it's going to be about the same number. And people are ticked about that.
Oh, yeah.
But really, I'm not.
Because your property values are going up.
I truly look at it like, yeah, my property taxes went up, but I'm selling houses that I bought 5 years ago for twice what I paid for. So I can cry about it, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that house is worth that much more money.
Yeah.
And it's a double-edged sword, and I don't really know how to process that. You get somebody on a fixed income goes and buys a house, and let's say, my wife's got an aunt that has a house in California, and she's lived in the same house for 50 years, and where they live in, it has boomed around. And right now, I mean, her property taxes is just such a ridiculous number that it takes a lot of what they make to be able to make ends meet just to pay just the property taxes on that piece of property. Yeah. So, it really is, I understand the concept because the expenses of the city goes up too. As inflation hits, and inflation comes in at 10% a year or 20% on some years, well, we experience that inflation at home, but our city also experiences that inflation too. And municipalities are not allowed to make a profit. So they're only allowed to bring in what it's costing them. So they just exist. So if their expenses went up 38% over a 5-year period of time, then that expenses have to go to the people. The people got to pay it. So I'm torn with it because I know it hurts people, which now, like we said, the seniors are getting some discounts on their property tax and getting some money back. But it's a rough thing. I mean, it's a huge divide in there to figure out, I'm really pissed about this, but can they really do it any different? And how can you do it different? I mean, if we all got to pay for it, then how do we do it different? Every day at my office is bring a freaking dog to work day. So.
Well, going back to your numbers, how much room do you have to move on that 1550 if your taxes and property insurance go up? Do you have like a range that now all of a sudden you're not making cash flow off of that if those numbers change too much?
So let's look at that. So in our city, so if they evaluate that at 300,000, okay, we already discovered that the property taxes would be roughly $2,600. So if we take 300,000, let's say they came in and they did an appraisal and said, look, now we're going to say that house went up 30% in value. So multiply that times 30%. 90, so we would take that and we would remove the land value. So let's say the land went up from 30,000 and we paid for it. Now we say we got 50,000 in land costs. So let's change that number to 340,000. And why do we take the land out of it?
Because you only pay for that once.
Huh?
You only pay for that once.
Nope.
Well, the taxes are based on the building, right?
So we don't take the land out of it. I switched to depreciation mode. You would take it out in depreciation. So we go back up to 390. All right. So,
I was like, wait.
thank you. So we had 390, and we're going to do an assessment. So they're going to assess it at 25% for residential here, 40% for commercial. So they're going to take that $390,000. They're going to multiply it by 25%. That's going to give us $97,500. So here we pay $3.50. We pay $1 per $100 of assessment in the city, and then the county charges us $2.50. So Sumner County gets $2.50, and we get $1 here at the city. So that's $3.50. So we divide that. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to divide it by 100 because we got 97,000. So now we're going to divide that by 100, which is going to give us what? $975. We take the 975 and we multiply it by the 3.5. So if they reassessed it and added 30%, that number would change from $2,000, not 2,000, from 2,600 that we have there to 3,400. So it'd go up about $800 a year.
Can the renters in that market afford that?
They're going to have to. I mean, how many people do we know that do rentals and basically a rental break even? There's a lot of people that have rentals that really, they just barely break even. I know people that's got rentals that do negative, and they just look at it like, well, I'm just doing this till I retire, and when I retire, you know, it'll be paid off and I'll get all the money from it and all this other stuff. They don't understand.
They're just happy to be building.
Well, you know, my whole life, before I got into real estate myself, listening to people talk about rentals, that's all I never heard anybody ever say anything but that. We don't make any money on that house, but whenever we retire, it'll be paid off, and we'll be able to take all the income at that point in time. So they had a note, and they just were going to pay the note the whole time. They didn't understand the principal reduction being income. They didn't understand the depreciation, which chances are they weren't full-time investors, so they won't really only be able to get a depreciation off of the income. And chances are, I know a lot of people do their own taxes. They don't take depreciation anyway. They don't understand it. So they're not able to do that. But, you know, so you look at the appreciation, depreciation, and principal reduction, it would make it a whole different story. But they're just looking at it like, I'm just not making any money. And half of the time they get fed up with it 5 years down the road and they sell it. You know, and they make $20,000 off of it. And they're like, okay, we made $20,000. So that would be the difference if it went up that. Do we have enough room to go into it? I mean, really you're looking at $1,000, so $500 a house, so $50 a month is what it would be.
Yeah, I think that's doable for most people.
Yeah, that's doable, and you know, expected or not. And like I said, I really think my 1550 number that I got there is going to be not way too low, but I think it's going to miss it by a minimum of $100. I think I'll be able to get at least 1650, if not 17.
Now, do you have any rent caps in this area?
No.
Okay.
No,
because that might affect how you build, right? So
we are not if we lived in a Nazi town like that was going to put rent caps on our stuff, we would not invest in a rent cap area. I think it destroys the value of your property when you go to sell it. I mean, and then, you know, if we're looking at New York, you know, they got rent caps on it. Now people can't even cash flow properties that they own at all. They can't even remotely cash flow. And then they losing their behinds on that. Then they got different provisions where they can pass, you know, the mom can die and pass it along to her kids. And one of her kids live in there for the same price, and they don't get to make an adjustment on the rent. And they're just destroying it. I mean, I would get out of the rental business if that's what it was. Yeah. And that may be the way the government comes in and gets control of everything. Let's go in and control the whole thing And I mean, you're seeing it in Oregon now. We see it in California. We see it in Washington State. We see in more and more states come in and say we're going to control the rents. Well, you control the rents with me enough here. I'll go to another country and rent. I don't really care. You know, we're going to go somewhere where we can make money. I'm not going to sit here and play. I'm not in here for charity. I'm here to make a living. I had somebody bash me on Facebook the other day because they said you only do rentals because you want to make money. Yes, that's exactly why I want to do rentals.
There's not a lot of people in this world that go to work
Yeah,
not to make money.
yeah, but they, you know,
So just out of curiosity, let's say there was no rent cap. Is there a general percentage increase that you could only do max per year?
No.
Okay.
no, unless you got it in your contract. But you really, you know, where can you go? You can go to market rents. You go above market rents. Nobody's renting your house above market. You know, I'm looking right now at my upper level houses that are renting for, you know, 2,000 or above. And I think next year for 2024, I'm gonna probably put a cap on that, and I'm not gonna go up on my rent on those houses because I want those people to stay. I don't want them to move out, and I don't want to put more of a burden on them. And we're okay with those houses, so I'll hold off on that. And I think most people that do this are good people. They're not out there to destroy everybody's lives and get everything that they can get. I need to be able to get enough money to pay my bills. I need to be able to make the profit off of it. And if I got an infinite investment already into it, okay, I'm good. So in the same sense, I'm also very cautionary on saying I'm not going to go up on my rents 3 years in a row. Because what happens is you start getting where you're $400 or $500 behind on where your market rent is, and your only way to fix that problem is to re-tenant the property. When had you just raised your rents little by little each year, that tenant would have stayed, adjusted, stayed, adjusted, stayed, adjusted to it, and you would still have that renter. But because you waited and didn't go up on your rents for 4 years, now you need $500 more than what you were getting, what they were getting. They're going to move out and go find another place, even if it's the same money, because they just pissed at you because you're going up $500 in 1 year. They don't look at the fact that he didn't go up on me or she didn't go up on me for the last 4 years. They don't look at that and say, well, you know, I got a discount for 4 years. Now I got to get back up to market rents.
Well, I think from a tenant's perspective, every tenant expects their rent to go up a little bit,
Yeah.
but they expect to see either maintaining or improving what they have.
Yeah.
For example, I was staying in a place for a year. My lease was about to be up, and they said, oh, we're raising your rent by $165 a month. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You haven't maintained this complex. The gate that you promised me would be security doesn't ever work. The valet trash you told me that I pay the extra money for per month, you barely ever pick it up. And when you do, you might leave a bag behind. So like, I didn't feel like I was getting the value for what I was already paying versus what they were trying to raise my rent. So I canceled my contract and got out. But if you're actually, you know, maintaining the property, fulfilling your end as a landlord and keeping that value, at least keeping the value, and you're saying, hey, $50 a month, no problem. I almost expect it. Cost of living, inflation, I get it. But like you're saying though, if you say don't raise my rent, and then all of a sudden like year 4, you're like, hey, $300 more per month. Whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. No way, I'm done.
I got you. All right, so let's finish this up because we do want to do some other stuff. So now we're at $9,301 for our total expenses annually. We're at $25,444 annually on our banknote, and our revenue. So to multiply 37,200 by 7%. Did she take that off? Okay, so that's just the total expenses. Okay, so the total expenses, the 9,000 plus the 25 is the $34,700. So we got 34,700. We got an income of 37,200. That's going to give us only $2,455. You're not cash flowing heavy. Are you mad about that?
No, still a positive number.
Still a positive number. What's your investment?
At that point, well, after you get the money, yeah, nothing.
So our investment is zero.
Yeah.
Now, had we have done everything in cash and not done this banknote right here, or a banknote right here, that $25,000 would flow to right here. And we would be making that $25,000 in income. And
Or percentage of that. So
Yeah.
you put 150 down.
yeah,
Finance
so
very small
so if you
amount.
need more cash flow, don't take as much out of it. You know, if you don't care about the cash flow, take all you want out of it. If that's not the big deal. So we got it where we don't have any. I wanted an infinite return on the thing, so we got no money invested. We got $2,400 in that. Then the principal reduction. So when I did the note, you know, our first year we're going to pay $25,000 on the note. I got $4,589 in principal reduction. So is that income that goes in our pocket?
No.
No.
It's money that
But is it
you
income
get.
that you have? Is it your money?
Yeah.
Did you pay it?
I didn't pay for it.
The tenant paid for it. So that's $4,000 you made. You didn't put it in your pocket, but you owe $4,500 less now than you owed last year, and the tenant paid it. That is your money.
Yeah.
That does go to your profit. Then we did depreciation, and we able to, if you take that and divide it by 27 and a half years or multiply it by 3.6%, it's going to give you pretty close to the same number, 9,300. So then you can write off of your taxes. Let's say if you're only in a 24% tax bracket, you get to take $9,360 off of the top of that money every single year that you don't have to pay taxes on, which is a savings at a 24% tax bracket of $2,246. You do recognize that every year because you don't pay those taxes, or you get that money back if you've already paid taxes on it. And then at 5% appreciation, we are factoring that in at $24,000 a year. So we have nothing invested in this house, but we're making $33,490. We're using the word throw off because that's the total amount of money that property throws off on a yearly basis to us.
Yeah. Not necessarily liquid, but money that in assets and.
No, so your only liquid, the only liquid you got is you get credit on that depreciation every year and that right there. So your liquid money is only this. Now, after 5 years of doing that, okay, now you got at least $100,000 of, because this compounds every year. So you got at least $100,000 worth of equity in that property that if you wanted to go pull that $100,000 out, you know, you run your numbers and say, okay, I can make this cash flow. The rents went up 3% every year. I can borrow $400,000 out of it now and make a cash flow still. Okay, then you go spend that extra $100,000 on whatever you want. You know, and it's,
Another 100 grand on the next property.
you listen to Ken and Robert and these other guys, and they always talk about that. Refi, Jason Hartman's big thing, refi till you die. You know, you pay so much on it, your rents go up, you start making more money, get some money out, get you a big chunk of money, go do something different with it. Buy another rental property, do something with it. So it's all the same thing. Any questions?
If you're buying this cash, why are you even throwing in a banknote?
Huh?
If you're buying this through cash, why is there a banknote factored in?
So
But not everybody can get cash.
for illustration purposes, I'm doing this right here because I always want to be able to pull my money out.
Okay.
Doesn't mean I'm going to pull my money out, but I want to be able to pull my money out. And you know, I told you we got, you know, close to 3 million of properties right now that we already put under contract, 2.5 million or so, that we put under contract that we're going to sell. That's just raw land. So as we sell that, we're not losing our income on anything. It's just money. So I'm going to actually use that money and just pay off some of my debt with it. And, you know, it's going to increase my cash flow tremendously. And, you know, we'll increase our cash flow probably more than 20,000 when we do that, or 10, 15,000. And, you know, just take it and rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. All right. Thank y'all for watching. Have a great day.